So my project and my presentation deals with the research I've been doing for my thesis, which is on how the British military adapts pretty much everything to the unique conditions they find in North America. But in 5 minutes, can't really summarize all of that. So instead, we're going to look at one snippet, one specific aspect of this, which is the artillery. And even that, it's going to be a very brief overview. So feel free to ask any question about anything, even if it's not mentioned in the presentation, about the British Army or the artillery, because of how quick this presentation is going to be. But the artillery that deploys to North America, that's going to be used by the British in the Revolution, they know, based off of their prior experience in the war before the Revolution, the 7 Years' War, the conditions they're going to find: a terrible or non-existent road infrastructure, a dense terrain, old growth forest. They know that the heavy cannons they use during that conflict, suitable for European warfare, unsuitable for North American warfare. They need something lighter. They need something better, right? And they know that the guns that they're using at the time, so the lightest British cannon during this interwar period, the 3-pound gun is 312 pounds, and it's maneuvered on a carriage that requires a limber and a horse or some sort of draft animal to move over long distances or maneuver on the battlefield. Just inadequate for the role that they're going to be finding during the Revolution. And so several different thinkers and engineers are going to be developing new methods, and they're going to be aided by technological as well as metallurgical advances in this interwar period. Bronze guns, the lightest guns as compared to iron, they're going to be wanted and utilized by the army during this period. Well, advances in bronze metallurgy allow these guns to be cast thinner, but still fire the same weight of shot as the heavier counterparts in that previous war, as well as advances in technology of boring out the guns rather than casting them with that cavity inside that the cannonball will go in, but instead casting them solid and boring them out allows these guns to be cast even thinner and still be safe enough to fire a shot. Now, these advances, coupled with the thinking power of several different engineers, are going to create the artillery that's going to be seen, much of it, in North America. And now Pattison and Wade, they're up there because they deserve some credit, but we're going to focus on William Congreve's design. Now you can see Congreve there, proud man with his handy-dandy artillery piece, and his design really wins out for several reasons. And one of the main ones is that he developed a very light gun. It's a little more than 200 pounds, so easily moved by only a couple people. He also, more importantly, arguably, develops a new carriage that is easily moved by a horse and limber, but more importantly, it can be disassembled completely, hoisted onto the backs of the soldiers, and maneuvered on the battlefield, which is unheard of, except for a couple experiments really before this period. Highly mobile, very light artillery piece. And we also know from period imagery illustrating exactly how this piece would have been disassembled and maneuvered, easily brought onto the backs of men and maneuvered around the battlefield. Now, this maneuverability, this lightweight mobility, allows these guns to be placed into a role that they never have been placed in before, at least in British artillery terms. And that's the concept of pretty much being paired with battalions, being called battalion guns. You'll see experiments with this in previous periods. Sometimes you might find it on certain battlefields, but in North America, it gets utilized as the most prevalent aspect of artillery on a combat field. And these guns, instead of being held back like on a European battlefield, massed in a certain place and having overlapping fields of fire far away from where the infantry are engaging, they're being pushed right up into the front line, which are going to compensate for many of the inadequacies that the British are going to be finding in North America. And this is pretty much summed up by General John Burgoyne. I'm not going to read out this quote because of the time constraint, but essentially he says that the way combat is happening in North America is the reason that these guns are going to be one of the deciding factors as to whether or not the British are going to have a success. Because they are fighting an enemy that many times has the strategic initiative, is fighting with a Fabian style of strategy and only behind defenses. And these guns in the record prove themselves extremely useful. They make up for that manpower shortage that the British face with their overwhelming firepower. And to look at any primary source of the period is to really read how effective they were. And again, I'm not, because of the time constraint, going to read out George Pausch's description of the first Battle of Saratoga, but he talks about not only maneuvering these guns very easily onto the top of a hill where the infantry were about to break, but also quickly firing off these guns and advancing with them, chasing after a fleeing enemy, just illustrating how maneuverable they were. So in conclusion, as we reach this 5-minute mark, based off of prior experiences of warfare in North America, that is going to stimulate what changes with the British artillery systems. And this is made possible by metallurgy and technology advances, as well as those specific designs. New artillery, it was mobile, it was able to be disassembled and maneuvered without the aid of animals, which not only cuts down on logistics for feeding those animals and then the amount of people you have to bring, caretakers for those animals, but also it's just much more suitable to the dense overgrowth and old growth forests that they're going to find in North America. It's able to accompany the infantry as they maneuver on the battlefield. But because of the essential firepower that they lend to a outnumbered British force, they tend to become the focal point of engagements. Rebel forces know that this is going to be the point of decision, is this concept of British artillery firepower. And so to read pretty much many different battles is the artillery being up in the front line becomes the target of attacks and suffers high attrition rates because it's viewed as essential to success. But most importantly, as with the gist of this project, the British Artillery Corps shows a willingness to change wholesale from orthodox European artillery methods to the methods that they need to use in North America, which is what my research deals with. Be it the artillery, the infantry, the Navy, they're all going to change very much so from standard European practice to something that will resemble a very unique North American army to try to subdue this rebellion. Thank you.